are ready to get started here. Lonnie. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. Welcome to the Dayton International Peace Museum. My name is Alice Young-Basora, and I am the executive director here. Before we begin, I want to let you know, first of all, some order of business here, that the restrooms, should you need them, are kind of weird. They are located on the 9th floor. So, I know, I said weird, so it is weird, but you will cross the lobby, go to the elevators, and go up to the 9th floor. And then there are several restrooms up on that floor, for one for everybody, and then one female, one male. So hopefully you won't get lost. 9th floor. You can ask people behind the counter too, and they'll get you going. Okay. So thank you for being here. Tonight we are here to celebrate somebody very, very special, as you all know. I would like to know, before I begin, I would like to recognize some of the people in this room that helped carry that legacy. So if you have ever served on the board of directors of the Dayton Peace Museum, please raise your hand. Please keep it up. If you have ever volunteered at the Dayton International Peace Museum, please raise your hand and please keep it up. If you have ever donated or supported the Dayton International Peace Museum, please raise your hand and please keep it up. Now I want you to look around the room and see the legacy that was created by Christine Dull and all the people that she has touched, and many, many more. Every day I get to see people come in and out of this museum, and I get to see the lives that are touched, and I think I am the lucky one, because I get to see how kids are affected and how adults are affected, and the sense of awe on people's faces when they come in here and know that it's the only peace museum, brick-and-mortar peace museum in the United States. And I feel almost a little bit selfish about that, because I'm the one who gets to see all these like wonderful things happening and see the experiences that I know you as their family, I'm sure you'd love to see. But so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that tonight, because I know all of you probably know Christine a little bit more than I do, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing in honor of her legacy, because it's one that has an impact on me. So I feel Christine's legacy pretty personally to me. So especially on those days when I'm having a hard time. I don't want to fail that legacy, and it's been entrusted to me. So I also want people to understand how extraordinary it was to create an institution that's devoted entirely to peace, because there aren't any of those out there anymore, and how vitally important that mission still is today. Because the stakes are high. Peace is important, as we all know. We live in a time of conflict and division, and when listening to one another is harder than it's ever been before, when differences are too easily to separate each other. The need for peace right now is not less urgent than when this Peace Museum was first began. It may in fact be more urgent than ever. When I think about Christine Dull, one word comes to mind, and that word is visionary. A visionary sees what does not yet exist and believes in it enough to convince others that they can see it too. Christine imagined a place devoted not to war, but just to peace. A place that would tell the stories of peacemakers and help ordinary people believe that they can be peacemakers too, and that they too could create a more peaceful world. But she didn't stop at just imagining it. She did something about it. Christine and Ralph Dull, joined by J. Frederick Arment, Lisa Walters, and Steve Freiberg, which is also here with us tonight somewhere in this room, 5 people with different backgrounds and talents, but shared an extraordinary belief. A belief that Dayton needed a place dedicated to peace. So they created one. And we are fortunate that Ralph is here with us tonight, able to see that vision that he and Christine continue to grow. We often think of someone's legacy as something that they leave behind, but I don't think Christine's legacy is behind us. In fact, I think it's in front of us, and it's what happens next. It's what we do from here on out. And today we are trying here at the Peace Museum to carry her legacy forward each and every day. What we're doing right now to do so is we have a new programming season coming up called Pathways to Peace. Peace is a verb, and it's going to focus how people around the Dayton community are creating peace in our community. We've been celebrating a season for nonviolence, and this will be our 4th year doing that. And as always, we've been still doing Peace Camp, and I believe it keeps getting better and better, but it's because of the people that keep coming to the Peace Museum and wanting to volunteer and help out. We've got an educational program now called Peace 101. There are 3 branches of that, and one of them is Wisdom Tree Dialogues that's done by a wonderful group of volunteers where they go into retirement communities. We've got Peace 101 that happens here in the museum where we welcome groups in and we spend 2 hours with them doing a lot of peace-related artwork and talking about peace and a lot of education around that. And then our newest one is where we work with sports teams and help them create personal codes of conduct and then turn those into team codes of conduct. And that one's called Peace and Play. And that's kind of our newest, and it's very exciting. We're also starting a youth advisory board where we're also trying to listen to the voices of young people. So we're not just saying, well, I think this is what they might do, but they can also tell us what they need and help them create those realities. Different ages, different places, and different approaches, but one purpose, to make peace relevant in people's lives. We're still learning, and there's so much more work to do. But that's what a living legacy should look like. It should grow, it should reach new people, we should ask the next generation to carry this further. But none of this would have been possible without the vision and the action of Christine and Ralph and the other founders. Because vision without action is just a dream. And they took an idea and they gave it a home. And that home has now been entrusted to all of us in this room. And it's a gift. I value my job here because I know this place is a gift. It's a gift to Dayton, and I think it's a gift to the whole country, frankly. And it's a responsibility because if we're the only one right now, we have to keep it going. So this work isn't finished. It continues with the children we teach, with the conversations we begin, with the people we bring together, and the people who walk through this door long after all of us are gone. We're 22 years old, and I hope that we are going to be 122 one day. Christine and Ralph helped lay the foundation for everything we continue to build today, and now that responsibility is on all of our shoulders. There are going to be people who come to this museum that will never have known Christine, but they can still know her. They're going to know her through how a child learns another way to resolve a conflict, or how 2 people choose to listen to one another instead of turning away. How someone leaves this museum believing that they have a role in creating peace, and they too are a peace builder. That's a legacy. That's a living legacy. She didn't just leave something to remember, she left us something to do. And that's powerful. So her work isn't finished. It's just been entrusted to us. And so that brings me also to somebody who understands what it means to turn conviction to action, and that would be Ambassador Tony Hall. Ambassador Tony Hall represented our community in Congress for more than 20 years and later served as the United States Ambassador to the United Nations Agencies for Food and Agriculture. Throughout his life, he has been a tireless advocate for people suffering from hunger and poverty. He's traveled to some of the most difficult places in the world, witnessed human suffering firsthand, and worked to do something about it. His work has earned international recognition, including not 1, but 3 consecutive nominations for the Nobel Peace Prize and the 2021 Dayton Peace Prize. But for all that Tony has accomplished, he remains one of the most humble people you will ever meet. And I think Christine Dahl would have appreciated that, because ultimately this is about service. And it's about seeing a need and deciding you have a responsibility to respond. Christine understood that, Ralph understood that, and all the founders understood that too. And Tony understands that. Different paths, but the same belief. If we want to change the world, we have to be willing to do something about it. This is especially meaningful today as we memorialize Christine Dahl, and her family's here and her friends are here, and we're sitting in a place that she helped create 22 years later, and it's still going strong. And so also to talk about Christine today is, wait.
Sorry, he's kicking the tripod.
All right, pause. So it is my great honor to introduce our friend and fellow Daytonian and lifelong advocate for peace and humanity, Ambassador Tony Hall.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
How you all doing?
Great.
Good. What a great honor it is to be here at this wonderful museum and to honor Christina and to be part of this. You know, when we look at the news today, we see a lot of, and we hear a lot about dictators and basically ugly people, bullies. And we hear about the terrible things that they do in the world, and we don't hear enough about the peacemakers, people that really care about not only Dayton, Ohio, but the world and how it works, and where everyone is safe and fed and happy. And that's why it's wonderful to be here and to celebrate the lives of one of the most dedicated peacemakers that I know, and that's Christina Dahl. What an amazing family the Dahl family is. It was my pleasure to see her and Ralph frequently in my years when I was a congressman. I saw them as a team. They always worked together. They had an amazing partnership, and I met with them frequently. They were passionate and dedicated. They backed up their belief with facts, and you know, Ralph and Chris, they always brought heart and brains into every topic. They were very strong in their beliefs, and they let me know it. And when I voted in a way that they didn't like, they let me know it. And I knew, even though I voted with them probably 92% of the time, when I voted against them, they let me know it. And I knew when I came back to Dayton, they were going to come down to the federal office and they were going to talk to me about that vote. I counted on their advice, and I voted the way that they wanted me to vote most of the time. And I always believed that our work was always closely related. As I travel around the world, I've always been proud to call Dayton my home. And, you know, this is a wonderful community. And it's exciting to know and to think about the rich history of accomplishments here. And because of the Dayton Peace Accords, our city is now associated with bringing people together to solve problems without violence. And thanks to Chris and Ralph's vision in creating the International Peace Museum, the history of leading for peace lives on in Dayton, Ohio. It's really amazing to really think that this is the only peace museum in North America. It's incredible. The Beatitudes tell us probably the greatest sermon, in my opinion, in the Bible, in the New Testament, which is in Matthew 5. The greatest sermon is one of the great statements, one of the great verses is blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. I love that verse. When I read that, I think of Christina, and I think of Ralph. I think of what they have done. I think of the legacy they have left here. They lived that. They taught us that every one of us can find a way to build a more kind and loving world. And you don't need to be a member of Congress to be a peacemaker. You need love in your heart, a dedication to work, and to turn that love into action. And as a lasting tribute to the memory of Chris, I encourage each of you to find a way to bring a little peace into the world. Whether it's in your family or whether it's in your neighborhood or the community, wherever you can. Mother Teresa told me once, she said, you need to go back to America when I met with her the first time in Calcutta and tell people to do the thing that's in front of you. And she felt that if everybody did the thing that's in front of them, whether it's giving or talking or working or being a caregiver or donating, this would be a much better world. Do the thing that's in front of you. So we draw inspiration from the work and from this amazing mission of the Peace Museum. To me, Ralph and Christina, they were the conscience of the Miami Valley area. And I can give no higher praise than that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Family and friends of Christine, we are gathered here in this place, in this time, to tune our lives to God's light and grace. We are here to acknowledge the depth of our love and appreciation for a life well lived. We are here to be held in the arms of God and the embrace of a gathered community. Let us pray. God of all memory, of all breathing bodies, of all possibilities, you know us through life and death. You gift us with each other, with music for our hearts, and with your spirit in all seasons. Bless our time together and root us in your unfolding grace. Show us again how the mourning can be comforted, how the meek can inherit the earth, how those who hunger and thirst for righteousness can find some satisfaction in this world today, as we seek to walk in the steps of peace. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Hear these words of assurance from Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. These words of the psalmist have brought comfort and reassurance to countless people in countless generations. And there is a promise that we do not walk alone. All the words shared here today are shared because we have walked together. And Chris was known for words and deeds and an open, warm presence that was the heart and home, not only to the greater community in the world, but her very home and where she raised her children and who she called family. And so we are going to start the sharing today with a special song written by one of her sons, and we will continue to some time of family sharing.
All right. So, this is a song that I wrote. I was had gone to college and started to realize how grateful I was for my upbringing and all the love that my parents had for me. And so I wrote this song, and I'd like to dedicate it to my mother now.
I never really thanked you, I never made it clear, although you always helped me through every little tear. So now I'd like to say to you what's long been overdue. I should have said it long ago, 'cause I always knew. I thank you for the things you did that made me who I am. I thank you for the things you said that helped me understand. I thank you for the freedom you gave me as I grew. And I hope you've known this all along. I love you. You thought the job was over. In many ways it's true. But I still ask for help when I'm not sure what to do. I left home a while back, and now I live alone. It's time I told you this, since I'm on my own. I thank you for the things you did that made me who I am. I thank you for the things you said that helped me understand. I thank you for the freedom you gave me as I grew. And I hope you've known this all along. I love you. Oh, yes I do. I know as I grow older, I'll realize it more. But now I'm just beginning to open up life's door. And then one day I'll realize too well what you went through. And when that day comes, I will think back and know what to do. Well, I'll remember what you did that made me who I am. And I'll recall the things you said that helped me understand. I won't forget the difference it made to be so free. And I hope one day I'll be to someone what you are to me. What you are to me. What you are to me.
All right, now I'm gonna try to lighten things up a little bit here. I invited my good family friend Victor Thomas here. He's a wizard with balloons, so he made this for me. He's got plenty of balloons with him tonight, so I hope you'll all feel inclined to get yourself one of these too, or whatever it is you'd like. They'll help with that. We had a little trouble with the live stream tonight, and so I ended up having to use my phone, and then right after I got the stream going, I suddenly realized all my notes were on my phone. Good news is they're also on my computer, so that's why my computer's up here. I do want to I want to mention that one of the people that couldn't make it here, that really wanted to be here, she sent me a really nice note saying that she wrote, "Your mom was a good friend for many years and quite an amazing role model of love for all of humanity. Your mother was brave and courageous, and she loved all of you. Her community was wide, and many will be there." And my goodness, I am just overwhelmed by how many people are here this afternoon. I want to thank Alice and the whole staff of the Peace Museum here for all the support in making this happen. Tracy, of course. Tony Hall, thank you for your kind words. And for being here. My good high school buddy Doug Sanders, who's our photographer tonight, and of course my three brothers, Ted, Neil, and Joel, who you'll be hearing from, at least two of them, for all their help. We've been planning this for months, and here we are. And of course all the support from our family as well, while we've been all stressed out the last couple of days trying to get all the pieces of the puzzle put together. They've been very, very supportive. I'm wearing a pin today that belongs to my mother. Many of you may have seen her wear this before, so please take a look at it when you have a chance to say hi. If you knew my mother very well, you know that she was a spiritual seeker. She was raised a Christian, but she was always very respectful and curious about other paths. Growing up, our family were members of the Church of the Brethren, and she and Ralph continued in that denomination until she was no longer able to attend church. If you didn't know, she suffered from dementia in the last few years of her life. But we do have Ralph here with us. He's 97 now, so make a point to say hi to Ralph. We're so proud of him and the legacy that they left behind here with the Peace Museum. It's been said that the things that we often remember most about our loved ones are the small things, not the big birthday parties and other things like that. And so I have a few little stories I'd like to share. My mother, when I was, I don't know, maybe in junior high or something, I got really into leather craft. And so I was making all these things out of leather. Coasters were the easy ones, but I got this kit to make a wallet, a billfold. It was really kind of complicated. And I made this thing, and I presented it to my mother, and she used it until she no longer knew what it was for. And I actually have it with me, and it's in my backpack over there, so I'll pass it around or something. Here's another interesting one. In elementary school, I was a very artistic child, and I was making this monarch butterfly out of clay, and it was getting kind of late, maybe like 9 p.m. or something, and I was informed that it was time for bed, but I wasn't finished with this, and I know that my nephews know how frustrating it is when it's bedtime and you're working on a project, and you don't want to stop. And so I told my parents, I said, well, this is a project for school. I have to finish it. And of course they let me stay up late and finish this project. So the next day I was in class, and my mom came rushing in. There was a disturbance. She came rushing in, and she had this butterfly for me because I'd forgotten to bring in my butterfly. And of course it wasn't a class project, and I was so embarrassed. But what a lesson that was for me. And finally, my good friend Rick Holzer and I used to spend a lot of time in my bedroom during our high school years, and as an adolescent, I wanted to make sure hygiene was always top priority, so I used this Right Guard antiperspirant spray, and it left kind of an unusual fragrance that my mom never, she didn't recognize what it was. And so one day she asked me if Rick and I were smoking marijuana. And so forever on, we would always joke about smoking Right Guard. That was the joke. So when our loved ones pass away, we may share stories about their hobbies or interests, but world peace and understanding was truly a passion for our mom. She recognized that people are people. When you peel back the many and complex layers of culture, values, upbringing, conditioning, and abuse, we are all the same light of positive energy at our core. I really believe that. And there's no reason to fear our differences, but rather our differences make the tapestry of the world so much more interesting and vibrant. So yes, her physical body and presence is gone from this world, but I believe she is still here with us. Her energy, her essence is available to us at any time, all of us. All you have to do is accept it. Take a moment to smile at a stranger and engage them in conversation, to whistle or sing a silly song, or wear a silly hat, to find ways to make peace in your world, unite people of different races, backgrounds, and cultures. If you begin to embrace that spirit, you will find her. And if you make a habit of it, she will be with you always. Now I'm going to finish, and I hope I can hold it together because I'm barely doing that, with a poem that written by former poet laureate of the United States, Billy Collins, that really, really struck me when I first heard it. The other day, I was ricocheting slowly off the blue walls of this room, moving as if underwater, from typewriter to piano, from bookshelf to an envelope lying on the floor. When I found myself in the L section of the dictionary, where my eyes fell upon the word lanyard.
No cookie nibbled by a French novelist could send one into the past more suddenly. A past where I sat at a workbench at a camp by a deep Adirondack lake, learning how to braid long, thin plastic strips into a lanyard, a gift from my mother. I have never seen anyone use a lanyard or wear one, if that's what you did with them. But that did not keep me from crossing strand over strand again and again until I had made a boxy red and white lanyard for my mother. She gave me life and milk from her breasts, and I gave her a lanyard. She nursed me in many a sick room, lifted spoons of medicine to my lips, laid cold face cloths on my forehead, and then led me out into the airy light and taught me to walk and swim. And I, in turn, presented her with a lanyard. Here are thousands of meals, she said, and here's clothing and a good education. And here's your lanyard, I replied, which I made with a little help from a counselor. Here is a breathing body and a beating heart, strong legs, bones, and teeth, and 2 clear eyes to read the world, she whispered. And here, I said, is a lanyard I made at camp. And here, I wish to say to her now, is a smaller gift, not the worn truth that you can never repay your mother, but the rueful admission that when she took the 2-tone lanyard from my hand, I was as sure as a boy could be that this useless, worthless thing I wove out of boredom would be enough to make us even. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I am Neil. I am son number 3, if you weren't aware. And I live in Atlanta. I've been down there for about 35 years now. And you know, it's been tough the last couple months, but I think we've all been kind of prepping, you know, from a preparatory grieving is what I say to people over the last 5 years or so with mom's dementia. But I'd be remiss to say, first of all, I do want to thank everybody for coming. We have people here from Washington State, California, Arizona, Colorado, Chicago, Charleston, South Carolina, and I know there's probably several other places that I'm not even aware of. Do we have some Florida? So really appreciate you come. And you know, that's pretty impressive considering, you know, by the time you turn 91, you may not have a lot of friends around to come to your memorial. So we really, really appreciate you coming here, my brothers and I and the rest of the family. When I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about, I did go back to, you know, the week after my mom passed away when we were meeting with the funeral director, and there was a bouquet of flowers that would have these little kind of pennants that we could have that would say, describe the person, and we chose the obvious of wife, mother, grandmother, peacemaker, teacher, and friend. And mom was a lot of those things to a lot of the people in the room, but the way I sum it up is mom was always a pleaser. That's what she wanted to do in life. She always wanted people to feel safe and secure and happy, and that's really how she lived her life. And so I'm gonna share a couple of stories, some that are kind of funny, because I like to loosen it up a little bit. John did a nice job there with his hat. But I'll kick it off with one that's kind of interesting, not necessarily so funny, could have been a little bit scary, but back in, I guess it would have been 2020 or 2021 during COVID, Mom and Ralph were at Meyer in Englewood doing some shopping, and they saw a homeless guy, and God knows how much money they've probably given to homeless people over the years, or people asking for things or begging, I'm sure. But not only did they give him money, and again, keep in mind, this is during COVID with, you know, 2 very elderly people that, you know, if you get COVID, it's not so good. And they brought him home for dinner, okay? Then he slept overnight at their house, complete stranger. And then Ralph, thank goodness, had the the wisdom the next day to say that, you know, we'll give you some money and send you on your way. And I think they might have bought him a bus ticket or something like that. But that was Mom. That was, and there's countless stories very much like this. But that was one where I'm like, Mom, it was during COVID, and this guy could have been, you know, a drug addict that, you know, Lord knows what he might do. But fortunately, it turned out okay. But that's the type of person that she was. My next story is where Mom's trying to please her children. So this would be circa 82, because I would have been 15 years old and unable to drive. And I had 3 friends overnight, a little sleepover, which we had all the time, because of course Mom could never say no, so we got to do whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted, for the most part. And thank goodness, I think we all turned out halfway decent anyway. And so we decided we wanted to do a little toilet papering of a cheerleader or 2 that we were friends with. But we couldn't drive. And they weren't nearby or anything like that. So probably 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, Mom gets the original Peacemobile, which was a station wagon, of course, had the peace stickers on the back, which at that age I did not think was cool, and I had to drive that car. But because they were all over the car. Anyway, we go to Kroger's, and I remember that we got, you know, well over 100 rolls of toilet paper. You could get a 4-pack for 59 cents back then, so not quite like during COVID. And so we loaded up like 2 shopping carts of that. Mom takes us out to go toilet papering. She stays a couple streets over, and this is probably 2 in the morning. We are doing our toilet papering, and then unfortunately, a police officer was called by a neighbor. They came. We were circling around the car while they were on the other side, and then we hauled. And one of my friends, a few people in the room know who it is, he thought that they might shoot some 15-year-olds for toilet papering. He put up his hands and said, "Don't shoot." And so we all got caught. Yeah. And then Mom had to, you know, come on over, and our friend came out and said, "Send them to jail." And so we went back, had the sleepover. The next morning, Mom made her famous crepes that some of my friends still talk about to this day, and then we had to drive back over and clean up. But that, again, that was just Mom being a pleaser, you know, to her sons. So growing up in our household, kind of like John alluded to, a lot of love, and we got a lot of lessons, and we just learned, you know, right from wrong. That doesn't mean we always did right from wrong, but we knew right from wrong for sure. But the way our household was, we had refugees living in our house in high school. I was thinking of saying this, or maybe I shouldn't say it, but this was just kind of funny. You guys, we had a couple refugees that were from El Salvador sitting there on the couch, and they knew 0 English, and Joel and I are sitting on the couch. And if you remember MTV, you remember that song, "It's no fun being an illegal alien." That came on, and we're sitting there on the couch. We're sitting there on the couch with these 2 women from El Salvador. And we're like, and I don't know if they knew what was going on or not. But we just had our house was open to people, and it was always about trying to help someone have a better life. And she did that, and there was an organization that she and Ralph were involved in called House of the People that welcomed refugees or poor people or people that were down on their luck. And it's still going strong to this day, and I met one of the gentlemen here tonight that's, I don't know if he runs it, but very involved with it. And but we were exposed to those types of things as children. So and that's not, you know, that's not something that happens in probably most households. And so we really had a great upbringing, great teachers with Mom and Dad. And then a couple more things I was going to mention, just her being a mom. You know, I think parents always want to parent. It doesn't matter how old the child gets. They still want to be mom or they still want to be dad. But I was living in Maryland after college, and I had my first serious injury. I tore my ACL playing soccer. Mom I didn't need to have her come out, but she came out for a week, drove out to Maryland, stayed with me for a week after I had surgery. And then several years later, she came down to Atlanta when I had my ankle reconstructed, stayed down with me for a week. And it was nice because did I need to have her with me? No, but it was great for both of us to spend time, really, really quality time together, which you don't get to do as an adult that much anymore because everybody's busy. And then finally, this one, I even had someone kind of give me crap about this one, but I had Mom and Ralph come down when I had my double knee replacement 9 years ago. And so they weren't the youngest of folks, but they drove down to Atlanta and stayed with me for 2 weeks. And I needed them for that one. That one I needed them. But that was the type of person my mom was, just always pleasing people, always giving, and thinking of how she could help others. I also wanted to touch on the love that Mom and Ralph had for each other. You know, down the stretch when Mom went into the senior living center, when Mom and Ralph went in there almost 5 years ago, I would call my mom every single day, and we'd have little conversations, which I just was gonna not have any regrets. You know, I was gonna spend as much time with her as I possibly could. And every time I came up to Ohio, which was usually every 4 to 6 weeks, I would take Mom and Ralph out to Montage, which is a great little restaurant downtown Greenville near where they were. And then I would take them to the bakery and get a dozen cookies, and then we'd go get ice cream because if you knew my mom, sweets were a huge thing for her, and unfortunately I got that from her. I like them as well. But I mention this just because I got to view Mom and Ralph together. I mean, as folks that were, you know, late in life, and I would see them hold hands. I have pictures, you've probably seen them. You might have seen some of them in the collage. Pictures of them holding hands, lying in bed, they're sleeping, you know, they're lying in bed holding hands or kissing. And actually, I saw my mom, I was with my mom 4 days before she passed. I happened to be up here, and I was feeding her ice cream. She had, you know, declined to some extent at that point. But I remember her looking over at Ralph and just telling him that she loved him. And this was 4 days before she passed. So that was a great example of, you know, what true love can be. So I wanted to share that as well. And then finally, if I had to say, I was just thinking about this, if I had to say the 5 things that Mom loved, there would be Ralph, her sons and family, peace, music, and sweets. And on the music part of it, Mom was a cellist, and she played piano, and she was a great singer as well. And I want Ted, I took some video, I'll give a little story on, we were coming back from Montage, if you can turn to the screen. I did a video, and this was about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we had gone to Montage, had come back, and they happened to have, every now and again at the senior living, they would have some kind of entertainment or something, and they had show tunes going. And I think this is Yankee Doodle Dandy. And they came in, and Mom just, you've probably heard what music can do for older folks, even ones with dementia. And I just want to leave you with this video here, her love of music. If anything, I want you to see what she does. It's so cute. That was me.
Uh-oh.
I'm not sure why I did that. That was Mom, and I'm so glad I got that video of her. But I do want to just encourage, I know there's a lot of people John had put on the thing, you know, people that want to share, some people might, some people are on the fence. I hope as many people share as we possibly can accommodate, because it's, I mean, I say selfishly, it's great for us to hear these stories that I have no idea occurred, whether it's, you know, some of Mom's peace activist friends and trips that they took to different parts of the world. So I just encourage you to share if you're comfortable with that. Thank you.
The next song is going to make me cry, so I'm going to try to hold it together for a second while I tell you about it. Woody Guthrie wrote thousands of pieces of music, but Woody Guthrie couldn't write or read music, and so he wrote poems. He remembered all the thousands of pieces of music and what he played for them and that sort of thing, but they weren't written down, so only about 1,000 are actually written down. Well, they tried to start putting together some of the folk singers from the time, and Janice Ian in particular did a number of his poems and redid them. The one you're going to hear now is called "I Hear You Sing Again." And for those of you who knew my mom, she never stopped singing. You couldn't get her to stop. You could ask, but she wouldn't stop. And if you ask her to stop singing, and she actually would, instead she'd whistle. So there's always music coming out, and my brothers are going to play this for you.
So we'll see if I can keep it together. And if I can remember all the words. Just learned this one a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a week. Joel needs a minute to get his guitar going here. Wow. By the way, we've got some extra seats up here. Don't be afraid of the front row. If anyone's needing a seat.
Feedback issue.
Yeah. How does that feel? Sound good? Okay.
If I could only hear my mother sing again, if I could close my eyes and hear your voices then, all the friends and family would sing along with me and set your spirit free. In my heart I hear you sing again. Every note as natural as that. And when I sing those songs for family and friends, in my heart I hear you sing again. I know the troubled times that turn your hair to gray, and all the tears and sorrows follow to your grave. But deep within the heart of hunger, there were always melodies passed from you to me. In my heart I hear you sing again. Every note as natural as that. And when I sing those songs for family and friends, in my heart I hear your voice again. And it's a long, long road I've come since my mother's songs were heard. And the child I can't outrun still hangs on every word. In my heart I hear you sing again. Every note as natural as then. And when I sing those songs for family and friends, in my heart I hear you sing again. In my heart I hear your voice again.
Hi, my name is Allison. Excuse me, that song got me. My name is Allison Reynolds. I'm Ted's daughter, Christine's oldest son. And when I was little, I had the pleasure of spending most every summer, I think, for a couple weeks out here in Ohio with my grandmother and Ralph. And I'm from California, and I grew up there, and so it was a big adventure every summer. And when I was little, I was not one for naming things, even my stuffed animals. I didn't really have names. I didn't give my friends nicknames, things like that. But Grandma was such a special person to me that she was the one person who got to be named, and so she was my Grandmuzma always. And the name was so fitting because she was so silly and lively and really, I can talk a lot about what she did and the stories, but what was most important to me about my Grandmuzma was how she made me feel. And more than anyone else, she just loved and loved unconditionally, just for who you were. I'm sure anybody who knew her knew that about her, is that no matter how you showed up, she loved you just as you were. And she was weird and silly, and so you got to be weird and silly and fun. And she also fostered my love of music. I used to love singing with her as well, and also of travel and adventure. So coming to visit her was one of the first times she got me journaling when I was little, and I became a great adventurer, and she bought me my first own set of luggage when I was graduating from high school. And then I went and I traveled the world just like she did. And yeah, I don't have too much more to say. I mean, I have thousands of stories, but mostly every time I think of her, what I think of is who I became because of her. She was the heart of my heart. Everyone who knew us knew that we had a really special bond. She was the one who helped me become the woman that I am. And so I will always carry her with me. And I think of her when I am raising my daughter, and when I'm being in the world and being kind, and I have a very open and compassionate heart, and people sometimes, especially my brother, give me a hard time about how I can be vulnerable or, kind of naive and get taken advantage of. And people used to say that about Grandma too sometimes. And truly, it's my gift, right? Because it comes from how much I trust and love people. And I've been so blessed, just like Grandma was, that if you really open your hearts and you trust and you love, like, you can find a way. In 91 years, she may have gotten hoodwinked a few times, but and so have I, and so will I, but I will never close my heart, and I will always keep it open, just like she did.
Thank you all so much for coming. Pardon me, I guess I haven't spoken for a bit. I'm Dana Schroeder, and I'm Ted's wife. I was Christine's daughter-in-law for 44 years, and she had the same impact on my life as my daughter just shared with all of you. I'm just going to tell you a few quick stories. I spoke at her viewing, and so one really funny story is when she was married to Carl, we went on a family vacation with Ted's 3 brothers. His cousin Amy I believe she flew out with us from California. And we got in the station wagon, the Peacemobile most likely. Well, no, that wasn't Peacemobile, that was pre-Peacemobile. But we were all in the station wagon, we drove to Tennessee, and we were staying in a mobile home near a lake. And so it starts to, the kids are all running around. It's a little crazy. I'm not used to that. I grew up with one brother, very quiet house. And Christine and Carl's house was not a quiet house with 3 boys. So anyway, comes evening and it starts to get dark, and she says, Dana, so Ted and I are just married, I don't know, 6 or 8 months. It wasn't very long. Maybe it was within the first year of our marriage. She said, how about you and I go skinny dipping? Okay. I hadn't really done that before, and I thought it was sort of an odd request, but I did it. And that just shows you her fun side. She was always willing to do it. It surprised me, for sure. The other thing that John mentioned I thought was so apropos, if you will, was her spiritual seeking. And I'm not going to tell you all the stories, but the one story that I was personally involved with, and honestly, she was truly my mentor. She inspired me in so many ways, and I see it, as I raise my children, and as they raise my granddaughter, I see that as well. But so it was once she and Ralph were married, and they came to Germany. Ted and I and our 2 children, who were young at the time, kindergarten and 2nd grade, came to visit. And she said, you know what, Dana, there's this really amazing spiritual leader coming to speak, and it's only a couple hours away, so we could drive there. And she was an Indian avatar, and it was an experience I'd never had. So it was an hour to 2 hours of complete silence, and we sat in a cross-leg position. And at the time, I had low back problems, and I thought there's no way I can sit in that position for 2 hours, but it was surprising. And it was one of the most powerful spiritual experiences I ever had. So she was always exposing people to new experiences, and with a very open heart. And just to leave you really quick, because again, I know there's other people who would like to speak. Speaking of refugees, Ted and I were home one night, and he said, I'm going to go call Mom, and Ralph got on the phone. Mom was busy, and Ted said, is Mom there? And he said, nope, it's just the refugees. And Ted thought, wow, I guess that's how he's talking about my brothers. I was like, okay, Ralph thinks of my brothers as refugees. So I'll just leave you with that. Thank you.
Family here that wanted to say something. So we'll open it up. So I'll invite you, we want you to come forward if you can, but you don't have to get on the stage because it's being live streamed and we want people to see you. So I'd like to open it up for anyone who would like to start.
I know a bunch of people said they wanted to share a story.
We've got one right over here. We've got one and two. All right, come on up.
Thank you. My name is Janet Hirschberger. I'm married to a Dayton boy, and I live in New York. We live in New York City. And my Dayton boy's parents were peaceniks, as they were called then. And Chrissy and I and Ed Hirschberger and his wife Marion traveled to the Soviet Union twice as part of a delegation representing the Fellowship of Reconciliation, which is a peace organization in Nyack, New York. And Chrissy and I were an odd couple, to say the least. And when we were first introduced, and she said, "Well, hi, Jan." And I thought, oh boy. There are few people I have loved anywhere near as much as I came to love Chris. And she sang her way across the Soviet Union twice. She melted hearts and opened minds at every conversation, every place we went. And I saw her love for Ralph, the love between Chrissy and Ralph, evolve and grow and turn into what was a beautiful thing, not just for them, but for the world that they share with us, because together they were such a powerhouse of decency and initiative and creativity and kindness. And they changed lives everywhere in the world, including on Mott Street in New York City. And their home was always open to me when I came to Ohio. I stayed with them, me and my dogs, and I am so grateful. I feel truly blessed and honored to have had time with these extraordinary people and the world that they made a better place. So thank you, Ralph, and thank you, Chrissy. I love you.
I'm David Leach, and I think Neil mentioned the House of the People. And I just want to take the legacy of both Chris and Ralph back to when I first knew them. This goes back 40 years, okay? The Peace Museum is 20 years. This goes way back. I have such fond memories of them being along with Pio Celestino, who founded the House of the People, really the impulse behind driving this shelter, which, as Neil said, still exists. Most shelters have about a 7 or 8 year lifespan. Things blow up. And what I remember best about Chris and Ralph, I also saw them in various churches, Westminster Presbyterian Church, where I belong, and others, talk about when they went to Russia together to help Russian farmers understand. This legacy of peace is very deep, goes way back. And I remember Chris, two main things that you all know. She had a permanent smile on her face. When we saw the film of her dancing, the smile never left her face. They were an elegant couple, handsome couple. When they spoke at churches, or when they were trying to raise money for the House of the People, it was usually Chris that did the talking. And she was an eloquent speaker. I think you all know that as well. It was kind of part of her singing that allowed her to speak so graciously and open to people. She punctuated everything she said with that gorgeous smile. So I'm so happy that you're here, Ralph. I haven't seen you in a long time. Pio Angelic, who is currently the president of the board of the House of the People. He's native Rwandan. It was Ralph and Chris that transformed the shelter aspect of the House of the People to one that focuses on refugees from Rwanda, asylees and refugees. And it was Pio who was one of the initial people to come from Rwanda. Another individual, I can't remember his name, Pio, who taught at UD. Yeah, yes. He went to the Church of the Brethren, and he got to know the Dulles, and the Dulles say, well, you know, this is just after the genocide that occurred. I think we ought to open the doors for this cause. So, two things: eloquent speaker, beautiful smile, but lifelong, both Chris and Ralph, helping other people. Thank you.
I guess it's only natural, logical that I follow into the footsteps of David. After he mentioned my name in the House of the People, it's an honor and a privilege to be here in front of you today to talk and remember Chris Dahl. She was a wonderful person, and so was indeed Ralph. There's so many memories that I can share. Having spent the last, 30, it's gonna be 30 next year. Because I moved to Dayton from Washington, D.C. in 1997. So if my math is right, it's gonna be 30 next year, right? I came to Dayton to be the manager or the director of the House of the People shelter. Because of Leonard, you just mentioned that David, who was a UD, he was not a teacher, he was a IT systems administrator or something like that. So he wanted me to come to Dayton to help manage the House of the People shelter, which had opened its doors to Rwandan refugees who had just arrived. And he told me he was so busy with his daytime job, he didn't have, the time to take care of the House of the People. And that's how I came to Dayton. And I have never left. I've stayed here all these years. But I don't know if I mentioned my name. If I said my name is Pio. Pio Ngirek. And the founder of the House of the People is Pio Celestino. So life can be weird in certain ways. That something that was started by Pio from Peru can somehow get connected to another Pio from Rwanda, Africa. So, but God works in mysterious ways. So I ran the house all those years, and the one thing that I remember from Chris is the kindness that she and Ralph had, and I'm sure Ralph still does have it too, the kindness and the love of the people. So we know them in our community. They are known in our community as the family that gives Rwandans corn. They give us corn. You may think it's a simple thing, but they gave us the joy, we discovered the simple joy of going into the fields. Rwanda is a rural country. Like 97% of the people live in the rural areas. So we all grew up in the rural areas and on a farm, harvesting the potatoes, the beans, and going to the fields to harvest the corn. And something that we missed. Believe it or not, we missed the corn, the smell of it. And they said, oh, you need corn? Come on up and go into the fields. And so we've been going to the fields to harvest the corn. And somebody mentioned that Chris and Ralph are so kind that some people take advantage of that kindness. And I think we did. And I think we did. Many people go there and they go the next day, they go the next day, they go the next, I mean, they buckets full of corn. And so that's what we remember, the kindness and the joy and the love of the people. But I also personally will remember, will carry with me the rest of my life, the music, the musicality of Chris. She loved music, and so do I. I love music too. And it's one of the regrets that I have, that my life has taken me in so many directions that I have not had the time to really explore and rediscover and maybe learn more about music, because it's a passion of mine. I love music. I remember in my high school years, I used to play the piano and the guitar, and each time there was a big day at the seminary, because I grew up in a seminary, we would organize events and songs and theater, and I was up there on the stage, playing the guitar, and it's something that I wanted to be able to pursue, but I just was never able to do that. And Chris had offered to teach me more about the piano. She said, just find the time and call me out and come to me, and we're gonna learn the piano together. We're gonna really master the piano, discover the music, and I just never had the time to do it. Because I'm the firstborn in my family. The genocide happened. My father was killed, and so I had to take care of my siblings, my younger siblings. And I also was here taking care of the refugees, and it was just too much. So much work, day and night, that I just didn't have the time to pursue my private interests. Music was one of them, and so I remember that Chris wanted me to come and learn the music, and we just never had a chance to do that. And so I will always carry that in my heart. And finally, I'm in the process of writing a book, and a big part of it will be, about Ralph and Chris, and how they have helped our community. And so it's I would have loved Chris to read my book. Because when you guys went to Russia, I think you wrote a book, you came back and wrote a book, and you gave me a copy that I still have. So I wanted to be able to give you a copy of my book. But, she's gone, but we're gonna meet one day. So that's what I have to share. Thank you so much.
We wish you more music and writing.
I'm Chris Saunders. I think I know many people in this room. And Chris and I,
Move to your right,
this
please.
way?
Yeah, move to your right.
Can you come over here? The people at home want to see you.
I want to see you.
Right.
Okay. All
Stand
right.
out here.
Okay. Is that better? Keep coming. Okay. I'll start again. I'm Chris Saunders, and I've probably known Chris and Ralph for more than 40 years. In fact, Ralph and I used to brag we're just about the same age. I think maybe he's a month older than I am, or I'm a month older than he is. I'm not sure which it is. But we've connected on lots of different ways. I knew them before there was a Peace Museum, and shared their dreams of a Peace Museum, and worked down there for a while. But I want to tell you a couple of stories about Chris. One of them involves Russia. As you know, as you all know, Ralph was a farmer, and they were very interested during the Soviet Union. Now, we're talking about the Soviet Union in the 80s, 1980s. And he was very interested in how a collective farm would work in the Soviet Union, where it took a whole village to run a farm. Very different from what we have, where one family or one farmer would run a farm. There they had a whole village, and everybody had a specific job to do. If you planted seeds, if that was your job, then you didn't harvest. Or if you did something else, that was what you did, that was your job. Well, they were very interested in that. And so they wanted to go over, this was in the 1980s, I would guess, during the Soviet Union, they wanted to go over and spend some time in the on a farm in the Ukraine, which was the breadbasket of the Soviet Union. They wrote to, I think it was Khrushchev at that time, and asked for permission to do this and for arrangements. Well, they didn't hear, and they didn't hear. So Bill Shaw, whom I think many of you know, who was running Cross Currents at that time, said to citizen diplomacy trips, people-to-people citizen diplomacy trips during the Soviet Union, Bill said to them, well, I'm going over with a group, why don't you come with us and then go to the embassy? So that's what they did. I mean, this took courage. So they went over on proper tourist visa, but once they got to Moscow, they went to the Russian embassy, and they said, we're here. So what were the Russians supposed to do? They sprung into action. I mean, here were two American farmers in their minds that wanted to work and live in a Ukrainian farm, and they'd come all the way to Russia to get permission to do it. Now, my memory fails me. I'm sure they must have come back to the United States before they went out onto the farm, but they eventually, as you know, lived on this farm in Ukraine, and then wrote a book about this afterwards, a very good book, which probably the Peace Museum has for sale. Do you? I also was leading citizen diplomacy trips for Bill Shaw at that time, and I remember once trying to call her. I was in Kiev and trying to call her. The telephone connection was so bad we had to just shout at each other. But a couple of years later then, she and I led the trip back. She had come home, she'd written her book, and she and I took a group back to this village where they had lived. That was a phenomenal experience, to meet the people that are in her book and to see how much they loved her and appreciated their effort to get to know the Russian way of farming. They were not there to teach them the American way. They were there to learn and to make friends. But later then, they brought some Russian farmers over who lived with them on the Dole farm and worked for the Dole family. Another story I want to tell you, switch gears and move forward to the Dayton Peace Accords and Bosnia. She and I were both on the first citizen trip into Sarajevo exactly a year after the peace accords were signed. It was a phenomenal experience. There probably wasn't a building in town that wasn't either destroyed or pockmarked from this deadly war. And we stayed with friends, or stayed with people in Sarajevo. Well, it was very cold. It was November, and we had taken very warm clothes and had taken a lot of things with us to leave, humanitarian supplies, to leave with the people. But one day, she and I were walking along in front of what we called the Pink Synagogue, which was sort of our center when we were there. and a very attractive young woman was walking towards us. Chris spoke to her in Russian, and she spoke back to us in English. And to make a long story short, her name was Beba, and she invited us to have lunch. Nearby was this building of green glass, much like the one that we've got in town, but totally shattered. Can you imagine that? Just shattered. Well, this was where her family was living. And Ralph and I left another excursion that we were doing to get down there in time to have lunch with his family. And walking into that was incredible, going into this building that had been all bombed out. But on the top, they lived on the 3rd floor, and we went up the stairs, and here was this lovely family in this tiny little efficiency apartment. They had lived, this Bosnian family had lived a nearby or in a village some distance away, suffered all kinds of atrocities, and in the dead of the night, the Serbs had made them come down that mountain in the night into Sarajevo. Well, they had this apartment to go to. They had bought this in better times. The parents had bought this in better times for their daughters to live in when they went to college. Does that sound familiar? Just exactly what many Americans do. So this apartment still existed, and we had lunch with them and got to know them. Chris carried on with Beba afterwards, helped support her as she was going into medical school. And we brought her here with the Sarajevo Symphony, if you remember that, going back some time. She wasn't in the symphony, but she traveled with the symphony and came here. But Chris kept up that relationship and helped support Beba and get her through medical school. On the way out from that trip, there was one daughter that we had not met, and she was in, not Split, the city that we were flying out of. Sorry, it just slipped my mind. But she met us at the airport so that she would meet these Americans who had met her family. It was very, very cold, and she came in a very light coat. So what did Chris do? She was wearing a fur coat. She gave her her fur coat. And probably that girl is wearing that still today. That's Chris. She was so generous and so kind and so loving, and everyone was her friend. And I miss her very deeply. Thank you for letting me share this.
I'm Mary Ramey. I volunteered with the Peace Museum. I came onto the board in the Peace Museum. I became chair of the board of the Peace Museum. So I came rather late to the party that was Crystal, but was welcomed as warmly as everybody else here has talked about. And I worked with our executive director at that time, Kevin Kelly, and we had all these plans of what we were going to do for the year that I was chair of the board. And so we were so excited when I started in January of 2020. Did not quite work out the way we had hoped. And of course had to shut down because the governor shut everything down. So Kevin and I thought that we would use that time to work on a project that had concerned us very much, because you may remember our former home at 208 West Monument, beautiful building. Ralph and Chris had taken out the mortgage to allow the Peace Museum to go there, and then volunteers worked very hard to pay off that mortgage. But it had really been their baby to give the Peace Museum a permanent home. One teeny tiny problem with that was that it was not good for people with mobility issues. Beautiful spiral staircase, oh my gosh, it was so lovely. Not so good, and since I had my knee replaced last year, I can really appreciate how not good that was for many people. And the other thing was, when I was coming onto the board, I saw the sign that said maximum capacity, 42 people. I thought that meant the bottom floor. Oh, no, that was the whole building. But we regularly exceeded that. And my eldest son is a firefighter who does those inspections and stuff, and so I said, is there any wiggle room in that at all? He goes, yeah, no. So we were hoping that perhaps we could move to another venue for the Peace Museum, one that would be bigger, that wouldn't have the mobility issues for people. But the house at 208 West Monument was so beloved, and Chris and Ralph had been so generous, we were a little nervous about proposing this project. So he and I got together and came over to Chris and Ralph's house, and Kevin had put together this beautiful animation of what a new place could do, and it would have a performance space, and it would do this and that, and it was just magnificent. He was really good at that kind of thing. And so we agreed that I would start out by just saying, here are the limitations of where we are, despite how wonderful and beautiful that building is, but this is what concerns us about it. And then I handed it off to Kevin, and he opened his laptop, and he starts his presentation, and he got a good 40 seconds into it before Chris jumped up, and Ralph was right behind her going, that's a wonderful idea. Oh my gosh, yes, that's exactly what the Peace Museum needs. Oh, okay. So I don't know if they ever saw his really incredibly beautiful presentation, which is just a loss for the two of you, but they were gung-ho from the very beginning. And of course, we eventually found this spot. Kevin worked very hard with the city to find a spot and then helped design where we are now, which is at least twice the size of what we had before, is all on one floor, so everybody can see everything. We feel great fondness for our former home, which was incredibly beautiful, and as good as this spot is, it will never have that kind of beauty. But if it had not been for Chris and Ralph going, oh, heck yeah, we wouldn't have dared talk to anybody else about it. But so when Alice was talking about how this is Chris's legacy, that's another piece of how this is Chris's legacy.
Anyone else like to share?
Kathy McDonald?
Hi, I went to high school with Joel, and I just have a real quick funny story. When we were seniors, we were both procrastinators. And I was heading to school one day when a paper was due, and I did not have it done, nor had I even started it. And I just went to Joel's house instead, because I knew he probably wasn't going to school either. I was right. And his mom answered the door and made us pancakes. That's it.
She was a pleaser.
Anyone else for the group share?
Yeah.
sorry I missed the family portion of this, but listening to everyone talk about my Aunt Christine, I knew if my father Vaughn was here that he would be up here speaking as well. And I just wanted to say something on his behalf. I know that he has told stories about growing up with Christine over the years, and I think he'd probably tell some of them right now. I don't remember them well enough to go into detail, but I can kind of give you an outline of what he would do. He would start talking about growing up here in Dayton, and growing up with Christine, and he would tell a story about how smart, talented, and how much he looked up to her. And he would probably start there, you know, he'd move into different parts of her life, and he would get to what we were, all the friends have been talking about today, about the size of her heart and how he looked up to her. He probably would have stopped, he probably would have gotten choked up, and at the end of it, he would have just got across how much he loved her. And no matter how accomplished he was, he would probably say, but you should see my sister. And so I just figured I needed to say that on his behalf, because he passed about 4 years ago, and if he was here, he would be sure to talk.
Anyone else?
I didn't say anything at the family time, but I am Joel's, the youngest son's wife, Libby Schroeder. And the thing I just want to say really quick is that when I started dating Joel, I was a little nervous about sort of being in this biracial relationship, and I didn't know who his family was and if they were going to accept it and all these things. But as we started getting to know each other more, I found out that Joel's middle name is Martin, and he was named after Martin Luther King, because they had the same birthday. And I said to myself, whatever woman was able to name her son after Martin Luther King, she's all right with me.
I know there are many more stories, and you will get to share those individually over food when we are done here. So like we've said, dreams and visions become reality when they are made manifest, when we put the flesh and the bones on them. And we are called to do just that. Chris would have us continue to live into the prayer of St. Francis that was always visible in her home. She would want us to be made into instruments, people, connectors of God's peace, to keep our feet rooted firmly in the face of hatred so that we may plant the seeds of love. To be quick to pardon in the moments of injury, to show great faith alongside any doubts, to have the audacity to speak of hope in the presence of despair, to be the light among the shadows, to allow for joy to bubble up like music, impromptu, through any situation or sorrow. For we will find consolation as we console the other. We will feel more understood when we seek to deeply listen to another. And we will discover love when we risk the adventure of extending ourselves beyond our own understanding. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they know that the giving and receiving are intertwined as sacred as life and death, and that the creative energy is what moves the world forward. Amen. I invite John.
I just want to reiterate our thanks again for everyone for joining us for this special occasion. I had written up a little something that I wanted to say about the Peace Museum that I was going to include in my sharing earlier, but somehow it just didn't seem like the right place. So I asked Tracy if I could do it now. So as highly as I think of myself and my brothers, I feel my mom's greatest legacy is this place, the Peace Museum here. And I hope you will visit the museum for inspiration from the exhibits, not only to visit the Peace Museum for inspiration from the exhibits, but to engage with the programs and help extend their reach into the community and beyond. We need your support, your ideas, your enthusiasm. I'm sure it can be monetary, and we do encourage you to make a donation in our mom's honor. And you'll note in the program that we've got some beautiful music that we'll share with you for a donation of $25 or more. That was recorded by her two brothers. But we'd love you to get involved. Volunteer some time, suggest programs, or bring your own talents to the performance space, because we do have performances here. It can be a place to gather for community and recharge your soul and to go back out into the world and spread the philosophy of peace. So don't think of the International Peace Museum as a museum. Of course it is a museum, but it's also a movement, a living entity, endeavoring to make a positive difference in the world for future generations. As the mural outside says, peace is a verb. First to be sought within, then to be actively shared with others. We're serving dinner outside, but we have one more thing before we do that.
I would invite you to participate in the tradition that the brothers had among their table, and many of you do as well. And we're going to sing the doxology as our benediction and as our blessing for our meal. After we are done with that, you are welcome to go through the lines. There's a pasta bar here, and you can take your plate. There are tables outside on the patio. It did not rain, so that is wonderful. And continue to enjoy each other and each other's stories here. Let us stand. You can even grab hands with the person next to you.
And if you don't know, just fake it. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures dearly low. Praise Him above the heavenly host. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Go in peace.
And we're having vanilla ice cream, and that's 100% in my mom's honor. That's what she ate every day.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it.
We need this song.
It says, well, I'll give this.
Yeah, she belongs to that one over there. We're going.
That looks sharp. She in your eye?
No, I will. Definitely.
I know.
But that's okay.
Really, it tickles my